What if I told you that you could heal trauma or even change really deep-seated behaviors not by talking it out in therapy, but by listening to a story while you're asleep? It sounds pretty wild, I know. But today, we're diving into a fascinating method that claims to do just that, using the power of the human voice and fairy tales to work directly with our subconscious.
It really does sound like something straight out of science fiction, doesn't it? But this is the central question behind the whole system we're exploring today. Can a story, told in a very, very specific way, actually get in there and rewire our neural pathways, changing our behavior from the inside out?
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the 3 core ingredients: the voice, the tale, and the silence. Then we'll see who this is actually for. We'll get into a specific example for kids called the Mama Bee fairy tale, and then we'll unpack the science it claims to use to remap the brain. After we look at a couple of powerful transformation stories, we'll wrap up by exploring what makes this a totally independent path to healing.
All right, so let's get into the nuts and bolts. What exactly is this method? Well, it's all built on 3 really specific pillars that have to work together: a certain kind of voice, a certain kind of story, and the silence in between.
Okay, the official name is a bit of a mouthful: the Acoustic Archetypal Reconstruction System. But that word reconstruction is so important. According to the system's creator, Natalia Poluektova-Pisareva, the goal isn't just to calm you down. No, it's to actively rebuild a person's inner world using this very deliberate mix of voice, story, and silence.
And this is where it gets incredibly specific. We're not talking about just any voice. The method uses a specific type of chest timbre, vibrating in a super narrow frequency band between 77 and 93 Hz. The theory here is that this really low, resonant frequency kind of mimics the vibrations we all felt in the womb, which creates this deep sense of safety and allows the message to bypass our conscious brain and speak directly to the nervous system.
So, who is this actually for? You might be thinking it's for a really niche group, but the range of people this system claims it can help is, well, it's surprisingly broad.
You know, what's so striking when you look at this list is the common thread, right? Every single one of these groups is dealing with a nervous system that's under some kind of extreme pressure. Whether it's the developmental stress for a child with ASD, the performance anxiety of a top student, or the trauma of a soldier, the method targets that foundational need for stability and restoration no matter what the person's story is.
Okay, so let's see how this works in practice, especially for children. We're going to look at the cornerstone of their kids program, something they call the Mama Bee fairy tale.
The fundamental goal here is all about empowerment. This isn't about an adult swooping in to solve the problem for the child. Instead, the fairy tale is designed to build an internal toolkit for self-regulation, basically giving the child their own mental roadmap to find stability when things get tough.
So let's walk through how this works. First, a completely personalized story is written that's tailored to whatever that child's specific issue is. Then, the child is cast as the hero of their own story, and they learn alongside helper characters. The story engages multiple senses with really rich descriptions, making it way more immersive. And the final step is for the child to internalize this whole journey, creating a new behavioral roadmap they can actually use in real life.
This all sounds really cool, but how can a story literally remap the brain? This next part gets into the theory behind it all, the secret sauce, if you will.
So, the core concept is something called sensory conflict. The basic idea is to present the brain with information that doesn't quite add up, forcing it to create new connections just to make sense of the paradox.
This is a perfect example, right? In the real world, a tree grows pears. Simple. But in the fairy tale, a tree that's shaped like a pear might grow raspberry-flavored candy. So the brain has to hold these 2 conflicting ideas, pear shape, raspberry candy, in mind at the same time. This little mental workout is what's believed to build cognitive flexibility.
And this whole process follows a 4-step algorithm. First, you break reality with these mismatched elements. Second, the brain has to work to assemble them into a new, single idea. Third, an emotional anchor, like that safe feeling from the low-frequency voice, stabilizes this new neural construction. And finally, the child can transfer this brand new problem-solving skill into their daily life.
Okay, so that's the theory, but what about the results? Now we're going to look at 2 clinical cases provided by the method's author that claim to show this exact process in action.
So our first case is a 10-year-old boy named Stepan. He had developed a really persistent stutter after going through a stressful event.
The transformation reported in this case is pretty striking. According to the author's account, after just 3 of these personalized fairy tales, Stepan's stutter completely stopped. But the effects didn't end there. He also allegedly started singing in a choir, showed improved memory, and even became a leader in his class, with no reported return of his symptoms.
Now, this second case is very different. It's a 55-year-old woman who had been living with the effects of a severe trauma from her early childhood for her entire life.
What's just wild about this account is the claimed speed of the change. The source material says that after listening to a single fairy tale, the woman exited a trauma state that had lasted for decades, and she did it, reportedly, overnight. The claims also say she was able to break free from toxic relationship patterns and fully restore her own ability to make decisions.
So what makes this approach so different? The last piece of this puzzle is really understanding its core philosophy and why it's positioned as something totally separate from mainstream therapy. And this is where the method really draws a line in the sand. It intentionally avoids traditional therapeutic tools like analyzing the past or emotional catharsis. The focus isn't on talking about the pain. The goal is to do direct, structural work on the pain itself.
And this quote from the author it really captures the essence of the whole thing. The goal isn't to get rid of the pain, but to reconfigure it, to transform it from something that destroys you into a structural element that you can actually build upon, a foundation for a whole new way of being.
It's a pretty radical idea when you think about it. What if healing isn't about analyzing the past, but about rewriting the very stories our subconscious mind lives by? It leaves us with a really fascinating question. Could the future of therapy be less about talking and more about listening to a new story while we sleep?